I came home that Wednesday night already done with the day, and the first thing I heard was something hitting the kitchen floor hard enough to make me stop with my key still in the lock. Then Priya yelled, "I'm fine." That was usually not a good sign. Rain was coming down sideways outside, tapping against the balcony glass, and my jacket was stuck to my shoulders. I had spent 11 hours at the firm fixing window measurements on a project that should have been approved 3 days earlier. My head felt packed with tracing paper and emails. All I wanted was a shower, something warm to eat, and maybe 6 hours where nobody asked me to move a wall 2 inches to the left. Instead, I pushed the door open and smelled smoke. "Priya?" I called. "In here," she said. "Don't judge me." I dropped my bag by the couch and walked into the kitchen. She was standing in the middle of it like she had lost a fight with dinner. One cabinet door was open, then another. Then, somehow, the one above the fridge too. A jar of sauce had tipped over on the counter, red streaks running toward the edge. A wooden spoon was on the floor. Something black and flat sat in the pan on the stove, making a sound like it was trying to escape. Priya had her hair tied up badly, with pieces falling around her face. She wore an old green sweatshirt with one sleeve pushed up and one sleeve hanging over her hand. There was sauce on her wrist, and she was laughing so hard she had one hand pressed to her stomach. "What happened?" I asked. "I attempted confidence," she said. "Confidence betrayed me." I reached past her and turned the burner off. Was this supposed to be pasta? It was supposed to be dinner. That's broad. It was supposed to be impressive dinner, she said, pointing at the pan. Then Gerald distracted me. I looked toward the windowsill. Gerald, her houseplant, sat there in his chipped blue pot, doing absolutely nothing. "Gerald distracted you." He looked thirsty. "You burned dinner because your plant looked thirsty?" "He has expressive leaves, Kieran." I wanted to be tired. I was tired. But there was something about coming home to Priya in the middle of a disaster, laughing at herself like the world had not beaten her even once that day, that made my chest loosen. We had been roommates for 4 months. The arrangement had started because rent near the waterfront was stupid, and neither of us wanted to live in a basement with one window and a dishwasher from the 90s. A friend of a friend connected us. We met for coffee, talked for 20 minutes, agreed we both seemed normal enough, and signed a lease like responsible adults. I thought that was all it would be. Split rent, shared fridge shelves, quiet evenings, polite texts about toilet paper. Then Priya moved in with 3 suitcases, 2 lamps, a box of mismatched mugs, and a plant she introduced to me before she introduced half her furniture. Within a week, the apartment stopped feeling like a place I slept between work days and started feeling like somewhere people actually lived. She left cabinet doors open. She hummed while making coffee. She watched cooking videos and then ignored half the steps. She taped a tiny paper crown to Gerald's pot on his birthday, which she admitted she had invented because she was bored. I complained about all of it. I also started coming home faster. That night, she picked up the spoon from the floor and held it out to me. "Can this be saved?" I looked at the pan. "This? No. Wow. Not even a pause. The pan might file a complaint." She made a face. "Okay, but what about the rest?" I checked the counter. Half a bag of rice. A cutting board with chopped bell peppers, some onions, and mushrooms that had somehow survived. The sauce was mostly on the counter, but enough stayed in the jar to be useful. There was also a bowl of shredded cheese sitting too close to the stove. "You have rice," I said. "Vegetables. Some sauce. Eggs. In the fridge." "Then move." She stepped back and saluted me with the spoon. "Yes, chef." "Do not call me that." "Yes, emotionally unavailable chef." I gave her a look. She grinned and went to wipe sauce off the counter with the wrong side of a sponge. I washed my hands, took the burned pan off the stove, and started over. Priya leaned against the counter beside me, close enough that her sleeve brushed my arm whenever she moved. She kept talking while I cooked, telling me about a client at her work who kept saying "circle back" like it was a spiritual practice. I told her about my project manager asking me to redo a lobby layout because it looked too rectangular, which made Priya stop wiping the counter and stare at me. "It's a lobby," she said. "Yeah, in a building." That was my understanding. How dare it be rectangular? That was also my reaction. She laughed, and I tried not to look too pleased about it. I made rice in the small pot, fried the vegetables with garlic, added what was left of the sauce, and put 2 eggs on top because it made the whole thing look intentional. Priya set the table, which meant she cleared off a stack of mail, moved her laptop, and pushed one of my rolled drawings farther away from the danger zone. When we finally sat down, The rain had softened outside. The kitchen smelled like garlic instead of smoke. Priya took one bite, closed her eyes, and pointed her fork at me. You saved the night, she said. You lowered the bar first. No, seriously. This is good. She took another bite. I owe you one. You can start by not leaving sauce on the ceiling. She looked up fast. I almost smiled. There's no sauce on the ceiling. You're cruel when you're hungry. Only then. She leaned back in her chair, still holding the fork like she was making a deal. Fine. You saved dinner. So I owe you one. Anything you want, just ask. It was nothing. A joke. The kind of line she threw out easily because she trusted me not to make it strange. I should have asked her to do the dishes. I should have asked her to stop naming kitchen appliances. Last week she had called the toaster Martin and said he had a bad attitude. I should have asked for the bigger half of the leftovers. Instead, I looked at her across our small table, with rain on the windows and the kitchen still a mess around us, and 4 months of staying quiet rose up before I could push it back down. Do you ever think about us as more than roommates? The fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I knew right away I had changed the room. It was like every normal sound got pulled out of the apartment. The hum of the fridge, the rain, the little click from the heater near the balcony door. All of it was still there, but I could not hear it over my own heartbeat. Priya lowered her fork slowly. She did not laugh. That scared me more than if she had. I sat back, suddenly aware of my work shirt wrinkled from the day, my damp hair, the tiredness under my eyes. This was not how I had imagined asking. Not that I had let myself imagine it much. In my head, if it ever happened, I would be calm, clear. Maybe we would be walking somewhere. Maybe I would say it in a way that gave her space to pretend she had not heard me. But I had just dropped it between us over rice and half-burned vegetables. Priya looked down at her plate, then back at me. That's a big question for a Wednesday night. I know. Why are you asking me that now? I rubbed my thumb against the side of my glass. Because you said anything. Her mouth moved like she almost smiled, but it faded before it became anything. Kiran. I'm sorry, I said quickly. That was not fair. No, I'm not saying that. I waited. She pushed a piece of mushroom around her plate with her fork. For once, she seemed careful with every movement. Priya was usually all motion, all noise, all quick reactions. Seeing her still made me feel like I had done something worse than ask a question. I've been thinking about it for a while, I said. Her eyes came back to mine. I swallowed. Not in a passing way. Not just because we live together and you're around. I mean, I come home and hope you're here. When something funny happens at work, I save it because I want to tell you first. I know how you take your coffee. I know you pretend you don't like quiet mornings, but you do. I know you leave every cabinet open except the one with the mugs because you hit your head on it once. She looked toward that cabinet without meaning to, and that tiny familiar movement hurt. I kept going before I lost the nerve. And I know this could make things weird. I know that. That's why I haven't said anything. Priya was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You really know how to make a girl regret offering a favor. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not fully. She smiled a little, but her eyes stayed serious. I don't know what to say right now. That's okay. I don't want to give you some quick answer just because we're sitting here and you look like someone kicked your chair out from under you. I do. A little. Great. I'm not trying to be mean. I know. She set her fork down. The sound was small, but it felt final. I need to think. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to ask what that meant. Good think or bad think. Door open or door closed. Should I apologize again? Should I take it back? Should I pretend I had been more tired than honest? But I had already spent 4 months pretending myself into corners. So I only said, okay. Priya picked up her plate and carried it to the sink. She rinsed it slowly, even though there was barely anything left on it. Water ran over the ceramic. Her shoulders were tense. I stayed at the table because standing near her suddenly felt like too much, like I might crowd an answer out of her before she had won. At her doorway, she paused. I turned. She looked back at me, her hand on the frame. I'm not mad. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Okay, I said again. And I'm not ignoring it. Okay. She nodded once, like she was saying it to herself too, then went into her room and closed the door. Not slammed. Not locked loud enough for me to hear. Just closed. I sat there at the kitchen table with the 2 plates, the half-empty pan, and the smell of garlic still hanging in the air. The apartment looked the same as it had an hour earlier. Gerald on the windowsill. Priya's sweatshirt thrown over the back of the couch from that morning. My drawings near the edge of the table. Rain moving down the glass in uneven lines. But everything felt different. For months, I had treated that apartment like the one good thing in Portland I had not managed to ruin by being too tired or too careful. I had thought silence was protecting it. Now I was not sure if I had protected anything. I got up, cleaned the pan, wiped the counter, and closed every cabinet door she had left open. Then I stood in the middle of the kitchen with the towel in my hand, listening to the quiet behind her door, realizing I had asked for the one thing that could change the whole shape of home. The next morning, I tried to leave before Priya woke up, which was stupid because Priya always woke up before me. Not officially. She claimed she was not a morning person, but somehow she was always in the kitchen by 7, making coffee with one sock half off and her hair, doing whatever it wanted. I used to hear the cabinet above the mugs open, the spoon clink against the inside of her favorite blue cup, and I would know the day had started. That morning, I moved quietly anyway. I got dressed in the dark. I skipped shaving. I folded my laptop into my bag without making the zipper scrape too loud. The whole time, I kept waiting for her door to open. It did not. For a second, I thought maybe she really was sleeping in. Maybe I could leave, sit at my desk, bury myself under emails and floor plans, and pretend for 8 or 9 hours that I had not changed everything over dinner. Then I stepped into the hallway and smelled coffee. Priya was already at the counter. 2 mugs sat beside the machine. Hers had a little chip near the handle. Mine was the plain gray one she once said looked like it belonged to a divorced accountant. She had poured mine exactly how I liked it, a little milk, no sugar. She did not look at me right away. "Morning," she said. "Morning." I stopped near the table, not sure if I should sit, grab the coffee, apologize, or just back out of the apartment like a coward. She pushed my mug toward me. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "Standing like you're waiting for a building inspector to tell you the whole place has to come down." I looked at the mug instead of her. I was going to head in early. "Because of work?" I did not answer fast enough. Priya nodded once. "Right. I didn't want to make things harder. You leaving quietly before coffee would have made it weirder." "Yeah," I said. "I figured that out about 3 seconds ago." She leaned against the counter and wrapped both hands around her mug. She was wearing loose black pants and a cream sweater with one sleeve stretched over her knuckles. She looked tired, but not angry. That was almost worse. I could handle anger. Anger gave you something solid to respond to. Priya took a breath. "I'm not avoiding what you asked." My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. "I didn't think you were," I said, which was mostly a lie. She gave me a look. "Okay," I said. "Maybe a little." "I know." She stared into her coffee, then set it down without drinking. "I do think about it." The apartment went very still again. I stood there in my work shoes, with rain still tapping lightly against the windows from the storm that had not fully moved on, and I felt the words land in me before I understood them. "You do?" Priya nodded, but she did not smile. More than I should. I should have felt relieved. Part of me did. A sharp, bright part of me wanted to step closer, say something, do something, take the answer and build a whole future out of it before she could change her mind. But her face stopped me. She looked like the answer had cost her something too. Before I could speak, she said, "That doesn't mean it's a good idea." I let my bag slide off my shoulder and set it on the chair. "Because we live together. Because we live together. Because we have a lease. Because this is my home too. Because I like coming back here and finding you at the table with your giant headphones on, pretending you don't hear me opening every cabinet. I hear all of them. I know you do." She rubbed her thumb along the side of her cup. "And I like that you close them without making a big speech. I like that you make food when I ruin food. I like that we can sit on the couch and not talk for 20 minutes, and it isn't uncomfortable. It's a little uncomfortable now." She looked up. "Yeah, now." That word sat between us. Now. As if there had been a before we could not get back to, and an after neither of us knew how to enter. Priya picked up her bag from the counter and slung it over her shoulder. "I have to go." "Priya." She stopped near the door. "What are we supposed to do with that?" I asked. She looked at me for a few seconds. "I don't know." Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood in the kitchen with my coffee cooling on the counter. It was the answer I had wanted, almost exactly. She had not laughed. She had not said no. She had admitted there was something there. But somehow I felt more trapped than I had before. Because wanting something and knowing someone else wants it back does not always make it simple. Sometimes it just turns every normal thing into a question. That was how the next 2 weeks went. Nothing dramatic happened. We did not fight. We did not sit down and make some mature plan. We kept living in the same apartment, doing the same things, except now every small thing had weight. Priya still made coffee in the morning, but when she handed me my mug, our fingers touched once, and she pulled back too fast. I still closed the cabinet doors she left open, but one night she caught me doing it and said, "You don't have to clean up after me." I know. Then why do you? I looked at the open cabinet, then at her. Habit. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on me too long before she turned away. We still watched shows on the couch after work. Before, she would throw her legs over the middle cushion, steal half the blanket, and talk through every scene like the actors could hear her. Now she sat on her side and kept the blanket folded between us like a border. One Thursday, she fell asleep during an episode. Her head tipped toward my shoulder, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her there without her touching me. I did not move for 20 minutes. I barely breathed. Then she woke up, saw how close she was, and sat up quickly. "Sorry," she said. "You're fine." She nodded, turned the volume down, and pretended to watch the rest. The silence got worse because neither of us named it. We were both careful, and careful people can make a mess without raising their voices. We stepped around each other in the kitchen. We asked about laundry like we were co-workers sharing a break room. We said good night from our bedroom doors, both of us pausing like maybe the other one would finally say the thing. Neither of us did. I told myself I was giving her space. That sounded decent, respectful, mature, but really I was scared. Priya had told me the fear out loud. If this went wrong, we could lose the apartment, the mornings, the weird dinners, the couch nights, the ease we had built before I put a name on it. I understood that fear because I had been living inside it for months. Then her phone started buzzing more. At first, I ignored it. People had phones. Phones buzzed. That was not a story. But Priya would glance at the screen and tilt it away. She would smile at something, then catch herself and lock the phone. Twice, she left the room to answer a message. Once, when we were making dinner, she got a notification, read it, and forgot she was holding the salt over the pan until I said, "Priya." She blinked. "What?" "You're seasoning the stove." She looked down. Salt had spilled beside the burner. "Oh." She laughed, but it sounded thin. "Right." I waited until later that night, when we were both in the kitchen cleaning up. She was rinsing plates. I was drying them. It felt almost normal, which somehow made me brave enough to ruin it. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She did not look at me. "Yeah." "Why?" "Your phone's been busy." The plate in her hand paused under the water. I hated myself for saying it like that. Casual. Light. Like I was asking about a package delivery and not the person who had been making her smile when I could not. Priya turned off the tap. "Kiran, that sounded bad," I said. "Forget I said it." "No." She dried her hands slowly on a towel. "You're allowed to ask." "I'm not sure I am." She leaned back against the sink. "I've gone out a couple times with someone from work." I looked down at the plate in my hand. It was clean, dry. There was nothing left to do with it, but I kept rubbing the towel over the edge. "Oh," I said. "It's not serious." "Okay." I didn't know how to bring it up. "Yeah, I can see why." Her face tightened. "I'm not trying to hurt you." "I know." But I was hurt. Of course I was. It came up fast and hot, and I had to look away because I did not want her to see all of it. I set the plate in the cabinet. "It's interesting." "What is?" "That dating some guy from work is somehow less complicated than being honest with me." She went quiet. I regretted it immediately, but I also meant it. Priya crossed her arms, not in a defensive way exactly, more like she needed something to hold on to. "It is less complicated." I let out a short laugh, but there was nothing funny in it. "Right. If it doesn't work with him, I don't lose my home." That stopped me. She looked toward the living room, toward the couch, the balcony, the lamp she had brought with the crooked shade, Gerald sitting on the windowsill like a tiny witness to all of it. "If I go out with him and it's awkward, I can just stop," she said. "I don't have to see him making coffee the next morning. I don't have to split rent with him. I don't have to pack up my room or wonder if the kitchen is going to feel strange forever." I did not say anything. Her voice got softer. "With you, it's not just a date." I leaned against the counter across from her. The kitchen was clean now. Too clean. No smoke, no sauce, no easy jokes. I didn't stay quiet because I didn't care, I said. "I know. I stayed quiet because this place is the best thing I have here." Her eyes shifted back to mine. I hated how simple it sounded once I said it. Not dramatic. Not impressive. Just true. "My job takes everything out of me," I said. "Most days, I come home feeling like I have nothing left. And then you're here, talking to a plant, or burning something, or yelling at a cooking video like it betrayed you. and suddenly I'm not just surviving the day anymore. Priya's expression changed, but she did not interrupt. So yeah, I said. I was scared to mess that up. She swallowed. So was I? There it was. The real thing. Not the guy from work. Not the buzzing phone. Not even the question I had asked on Wednesday night. It was this. We had built a home by accident, and now neither of us wanted to be the one who knocked a wall down. Priya looked tired all at once. I don't know what to do, Kiran. I wanted to cross the kitchen. I wanted to take her hand. I wanted to say we should try anyway, that we were already in it, that pretending was not keeping us safe. But then I looked at the apartment around us, at the life we had made without meaning to, and fear got its hand around my throat again. So I said, I don't know either. Priya nodded, like she had expected that answer and hated it anyway. After that, we finished cleaning in silence. She went to her room earlier than usual. I stayed in the living room with the TV off and my laptop open, staring at the same blank work email for half an hour. Her phone buzzed once behind her door. Then again. I closed my laptop. The apartment was quiet, but it did not feel peaceful anymore. It felt like both of us were standing in front of the same door, knowing what was on the other side, waiting for the other person to open it first. After that conversation in the kitchen, Priya started disappearing in small ways. Not all at once. That would have been easier to understand. She still lived there. Her shoes were still by the door. Her oat milk was still in the fridge. Gerald still sat on the windowsill, leaning toward whatever weak Portland light he could get. But she stopped being around in the same way. She left earlier in the mornings, sometimes before the coffee finished brewing. She came home later, carrying takeout bags or saying she had already eaten. On the nights she stayed in, she worked from her room with the door half closed, which somehow felt worse than fully closed. Like she was still there, but not available. I told myself I was giving her space. That sounded good. It made me feel like I was being patient and decent. But if I was honest, I was hiding too. I would come home, see her shoes missing, and feel a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief because I would not have to figure out what to say. Disappointment because the apartment felt wrong without her voice bouncing around in it. One night, I got home around 9 and found a note on the counter. Left soup in the fridge. Do not let Martin burn the toast again. Martin was the toaster. I stood there with the note in my hand longer than I needed to. It was just Priya being Priya. A small joke. A normal roommate thing. But it made my chest hurt, because normal had become something we were both performing badly. The office guy kept existing in the background. She did not talk about him much, and I did not ask. Sometimes her phone buzzed while we were in the same room, and she would glance at it, then flip it face down. Sometimes she would go out wearing earrings I had not seen before, and I would act like I was focused on my laptop. I was not focused on my laptop. I was watching the person I cared about choose the safer road because I had not given her enough reason to choose me. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, the whole thing finally stopped pretending. It was raining again, not hard, just the kind of steady gray rain that made the windows look tired. I was at the dining table with a roll of drawings spread out in front of me, even though I had not made a useful mark in 20 minutes. Priya came out of her room in jeans and an old Portland sweatshirt, holding her phone in one hand. She looked calm. That was the first thing that worried me. Can we talk? She asked. I set my pencil down. Yeah. She sat across from me. Not beside me. Across. Like we needed the table between us. For a second, neither of us said anything. I could hear the heater clicking near the balcony door. Gerald's leaves shifted slightly from the warm air. Priya folded her hands together on the table. I think I need to move out. The words did not land right away. I heard them, but my brain tried to turn them into something else. What? I found a place. It's small, but it's available next month. Across the waterfront, near that coffee shop with the terrible chairs. I stared at her. You already found a place? I looked this week. This week, I repeated. She nodded. I wanted to be angry. For about 2 seconds, anger was right there, waiting for me. She had made a decision without me. She had gone looking at apartments while we were still sharing coffee and pretending we were not breaking something. But then I saw her face. She was not proud of it. She was not trying to win. She looked like someone who had been carrying a box too heavy for too long and finally put it down because her arms gave out. I can't keep doing this, she said. I looked down at my drawings. The lines on the page blurred into useless shapes. Doing what? This. She gestured between us, not dramatically, just tired. The almost thing. The careful talking. The way we both know something is here, but neither of us will actually step into it. I swallowed. Priya, No, please let me say it. So I did. She looked toward the kitchen. I used to love coming home here. Even when work was awful, even when I burned dinner, even when you were sitting at the table looking like a haunted architect. That was just my face. I know. She smiled a little, but it disappeared fast. This place felt safe. And now every time I come through that door, I feel like I'm waiting. Waiting for you to say something. Waiting for myself to say something. Waiting to see if we're going to be brave or just keep being polite until one of us gives up. I leaned back in my chair. So moving out is not giving up? It's trying to stop making this apartment carry all of it. That shut me up. She wiped one hand over her knee. I'm not doing it to punish you. I know. I don't want you to think I'm running because you asked me a question. Aren't you? Her eyes flicked to mine. I hated the sharpness in my voice. It was not loud, but it was there. She took it anyway. Maybe a little. But not because you asked. Because you asked, and then we both just stood there afterward. I looked away first. Because she was right. I had made the first move, then waited like that was enough. Like saying the truth once meant I had earned the right not to risk anything else. I don't know what you want me to say, I said. Priya's voice got quieter. That's kind of the problem, Karen. There it was again. Not cruel. Not even angry. Just true in a way I could not argue with. I wanted to tell her not to go. I wanted to say the apartment would be empty without her. That I would be empty without her. That the idea of Gerald sitting on some other windowsill made me feel ridiculous and sad. I wanted to say I could choose her right then. But the words got tangled behind my ribs. All I said was, okay. Priya blinked once. Okay. If you need to move, I won't make it harder. Her face changed, like that was both what she had hoped I would say and the last thing she wanted to hear. Thank you, she said. The next 2 weeks moved too fast and too slow. Boxes appeared in her room first, then by the hallway, then in the living room, stacked near the wall under the framed print she had bought at a street market and insisted made the apartment look less like a lonely design student lived here. She labeled everything in thick black marker, but not well. Kitchen maybe. Soft things. Important? Check later. I pointed at that one. Very organized. I have a system. Is the system panic? Yes, but with handwriting. Sometimes we slip back into ourselves by accident. We packed mugs together and argued about which ones were hers. She claimed the gray mug was mine because it matched my emotional range. I told her she could not take the yellow bowl because she had once said it looked like a bowl for soup served in a waiting room. Exactly, she said. It has history. We laughed. Then we remembered. Moving day was clear and cold. Of course it was. After weeks of rain, Portland decided to look bright and clean on the day Priya left. I borrowed a dolly from the building manager. Priya rented a small van. We carried boxes down the hall, into the elevator, across the lobby, and out to the curb. No big scene. No dramatic goodbye. Just cardboard, packing tape, and both of us being too polite. Gerald rode in the front seat with her. I leaned in through the passenger window and looked at the plant strapped in with the seat belt. You know this is strange, I said. Priya adjusted the belt around the pot. He's family. He's a plant. He heard that. I looked at Gerald. Sorry. Priya laughed, and for 1 second it was the old kind of laugh. Easy. Bright. The kind that made strangers turn their heads. Then she closed the van door. Her new apartment was on the other side of the waterfront, 2 miles away, in an older building with narrow stairs and windows that faced a brick wall if you stood in the wrong corner. The place was smaller than ours, but she had already tried to make it hers. There was a rug rolled up in the living room. A lamp without a shade. A bag of groceries on the counter. A new start, half built. We carried everything in. Her couch got stuck in the hallway for 10 minutes. She blamed the building. I blamed the couch. A neighbor came out, stared at us, and said nothing before going back inside. By late afternoon, the last box was inside. Gerald was on the new windowsill, looking less confident than usual. Priya stood in the doorway with her arms folded. Thank you for helping. Of course. I mean it. I know. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's laundry. Behind her, the apartment was full of boxes with her life written badly across them in marker. She looked at me, waiting for something. I felt it. The moment. The same kind of opening I had missed before. I could have said it then. I choose you. Come home. Let's stop being careful. Let's make the risk worth it. My mouth even opened. But then I looked past her at the new apartment she had found because I had made our old one too hard to live in. I saw the effort she had already made to protect herself. And I lost my nerve again, only quieter this time. Take care of yourself, Priya, I said. Her face went still. Then she nodded. You too, Kieran. I walked back to my car feeling like I had left something important on the floor and chosen not to pick it up. When I got home, the apartment was not just quiet. It was wrong. There were empty spaces where her things had been. No shoes by the door. No green sweatshirt on the couch. No crooked lamp. No Gerald on the windowsill, which bothered me more than I wanted to admit. The cabinets were closed because nobody had opened them and forgotten. The counter was clean because nobody had tried to cook something ambitious and lost control halfway through. I stood in the kitchen and waited for the place to feel peaceful. It did not. The next morning, there was no coffee waiting. That was when it hit me in the plainest way. I had not just lost a roommate. I had lost the person who made my mornings feel like they belonged to someone. I had lost the voice from the kitchen, the bad labels on leftovers, the planned updates, the couch arguments, the sound of her moving through the apartment like life was not something to survive quietly. So I worked longer hours. That was my solution, because I was bad at better ones. I stayed at the firm until the cleaning crew knew my name. I answered emails at midnight. I volunteered for revisions nobody asked me to volunteer for. I came home exhausted enough to fall asleep without thinking too much, except it never worked. The apartment always waited. Every night, I opened the door and expected, for half a second, to hear her call from the kitchen, "Don't judge me." Every morning, I reached for coffee that was not there. And every time I closed a cabinet door, I felt ridiculous, because nobody had left it open. It was just me now. Me and the quiet I had tried so hard to protect. Several weeks later, I saw Priya through a restaurant window while I was walking home from another meeting that could have been an email. It was almost 9, and the waterfront had that cold shine it got after rain. The sidewalk was dark, the streetlights were blurred in the puddles, and I had my collar turned up because I had forgotten my umbrella at the firm again. That had become normal for me. Forgetting things. Working late. Eating whatever was easiest. Coming home to an apartment that stayed clean because nobody was there to make it feel lived in. I was passing a small restaurant near the corner, the kind with candles on the tables and menus written in chalk, when I looked through the glass without meaning to. Priya was sitting at a table near the window. For a second, my whole body stopped before my brain caught up. She had her hair down, tucked behind one ear, and she was wearing the dark blue sweater she used to save for days when she had to look like a person with a 5-year plan. Across from her sat a man in a gray jacket. The office guy, I guessed. He was talking with both hands, leaning forward like he was trying to make a point. Priya smiled at something he said. I had imagined this, which did not help at all. I had pictured her moving on in some clean, adult way. I had pictured her finding someone easy, someone who did not share rent with her first, someone who could ask her out without turning a whole home into a question. But seeing it was different. Seeing her in that warm restaurant while I stood outside in the cold made me feel the full weight of every time I had almost spoken and then swallowed the words. At her new apartment door. In our kitchen. On the couch. In the morning with coffee between us. I had not protected anything. I had just let time walk past me. The man reached for his coat. Priya looked down at the table, still smiling, but it was not her real smile. I knew that before I had any right to know it. Her real smile took over her whole face. This one stayed polite. Still, I turned away. I did not want to be the guy standing outside a restaurant watching her on a date. I did not want to make her feel watched. I did not want to walk in and turn myself into a scene. So I kept moving. I made it half a block before I heard her voice behind me. Kieran. I stopped. For a second, I thought I had imagined it, because I had imagined her voice in the apartment enough times already. But when I turned, she was there on the sidewalk, holding her coat closed with one hand, her hair moving in the cold wind. The man was nowhere behind her. Hey, I said, because apparently after everything, that was what I had. She came closer, a little out of breath. You saw me. I didn't mean to. I know. I wasn't trying to. I know, Kieran. We stood under the awning of a closed bakery while rain tapped softly against the metal edge above us. She looked tired. Not like work tired. Not like moving day tired. More like she had been trying to convince herself of something for too long. Did you leave your date? I asked. It was already ending. Oh, he said he didn't think I was really there. I looked toward the restaurant. Were you? Priya let out a small laugh with no humor in it. Not really. The cold moved between us. Cars passed on the wet street. Somewhere behind us, music came from a bar every time the door opened. She looked at me carefully. I'm not okay. That was the first honest thing either of us had said in weeks, and it hit harder because it was so simple. Do you want to talk? I asked. She nodded. We walked down to the water, and sat on a bench facing the dark river. The city lights shook on the surface. I kept my hands in my coat pockets because I did not know what to do with them. Priya sat close, but not touching me. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I tried to do the right thing. I looked at her. Moving out. Going on dates with someone uncomplicated. Making space. I kept telling myself that was the mature choice. She rubbed her palms together against the cold. And maybe part of it was. I couldn't keep waking up in that apartment waiting for you to choose me. I looked down at the wet pavement under my shoes. She continued, quieter now. But then I moved into a different apartment and kept waiting anyway. I swallowed. The guy from work is nice, she said. He didn't do anything wrong. That's almost the worst part. He asks normal questions. He makes plans. He texts back. He's easy. And that's bad. No, it should be good. She looked out at the water. But every time I sit across from him, I feel nothing. Then tonight I saw you outside the window, and I felt everything at once. I closed my eyes for a second. There it was. The thing I had wanted and been afraid of, sitting beside me in the cold, saying it without a joke to soften it. I messed this up, I said. Priya turned toward me. I thought staying quiet was protecting us, I said. Then I asked you the question, and when you didn't run from it, I still acted like asking was enough. I took my hands out of my pockets and leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I kept waiting for the perfect moment to be brave, like life was going to hand me one with good lighting and no risk. Her mouth curved a little, and while I waited, I said, you had to carry the part one wouldn't say. Priya looked down at her hands. I didn't want to be that woman, Kiran. Sitting there every day, making coffee for a man who might never actually choose me. Hearing it like that hurt because I could see it. The mornings I had loved so much had not felt the same to her after my question. They had become proof of how close we were and how stuck I was. I did choose you, I said. I was just too scared to say it in a way that mattered. She shook her head gently. Then you didn't choose me yet. I looked at her. She was right. A choice that lived only inside me had not helped her. It had not kept her in the apartment. It had not made her feel wanted. It had just sat there, silent and useless. I let out a breath. You know what's ridiculous? What? I miss Gerald. That surprised her. Then she laughed, soft and sad, covering her face with one hand. He misses the window. It was a good window. It was his best window. We both laughed then, not because anything was funny enough, but because we were tired of being so careful. The laugh faded, and the quiet that came after felt different. Not easy yet, but open. Priya lowered her hand and looked at me. I want to stop being scared of the answer. My heart started beating faster. What's the answer? She reached over and put her hand on top of mine. Her fingers were cold. You, she said. The answer is you. For once, I did not freeze. I did not look away. I did not protect the silence like it had ever protected me back. I turned my hand over and held hers properly. I choose you too, I said. And I should have said it months ago. Not halfway. Not almost. You. Her eyes filled, but she smiled, and that smile was the real one. The one that changed her whole face. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Yeah. She squeezed my hand. But we are going to be careful in a useful way this time. Not the way where we both slowly ruin our own lives. That seems fair. And if this gets hard, we talk. We do not silently become tragic furniture. I was more of a tragic floor lamp. You were a whole showroom. I laughed, and she leaned her shoulder against mine. We sat there until the cold got too sharp and the rain started coming down harder. Then I walked her back toward her side of the waterfront. At her building door, she did not invite me up, and I did not ask. That felt right. Not a step back. Just a step taken like we meant it. 3 weeks later, Priya moved back into the apartment. Not into her old room the same way. Not as my roommate with separate shelves and careful distance. We still had things to figure out, and we did not pretend otherwise. But when she carried her boxes through the door, the apartment seemed to exhale. Her lamp came back to the corner. Her mugs filled the cabinet again. Her shoes landed by the door within 10 minutes. Gerald returned to the windowsill like a small green king reclaiming his place. The first morning after she moved back, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a moment, I lay there still, letting it reach me. Then I walked into the kitchen and found Priya at the counter in one sock, stirring my gray mug like she had never left. The cabinet above her was open. So was the one beside it. She looked over her shoulder. Gerald looks happier. I looked at the plant in the good window, then at the coffee waiting for me, then at her. Me too, I said.